Despite being fairly early to the electric car game with the Nissan Leaf, Nissan has not really done a lot with EVs since then. They've iterated on the Leaf over the years, but they didn't make anything bigger, more family-friendly, anything like that up until very recently. Welcome to Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake, and I'm here with Nissan's second full electric entry into the market. This is the 2024 Nissan Ariya. As you can see, it is a more family-friendly vehicle. This is yet another electric crossover sort of thing, and it's got seating for 5, it's got all-wheel drive, it's got plenty of power, plenty of range, all that good stuff, but it's also kind of funky, and I want to talk about that in particular because despite just being yet another electric crossover, it's kind of interesting. So first things first, we'll get all the numbers out of the way for the people that care, and then the rest of you can keep watching for all the good, interesting, wacky stuff. But most of these are going to be sold, as my guess, as all-wheel drive models. That means dual motor, so one motor per axle. They do sell these with a single motor model, but I just think most people kind of end up doing the dual motor thing, just because all-wheel drive is a triumph of marketing at this point. But in any case, this is a fully loaded Platinum Plus, and that means it's got one motor per axle with a total output of 389 horsepower and 442 pound-feet. I'm still amazed whether it's an EV or a combustion-powered vehicle and how much power and torque is just in everything now. It's just so wild to me. But in any case, that's what you've got here. Now, of course, this is somewhat heavy, so your power-to-weight ratio is not going to be the wildest thing out there. This is not a Corvette Z06 if you've been following the channel, but it is plenty quick. We'll talk about that more in the driving portion. And range, of course, is always a question of concern with electric cars still, and this is good in this form, all-wheel drive Platinum Plus with the 19-inch wheels for about 267 miles of range. It's got an 89 kilowatt-hour battery, and that is what you can get. If you do the single motor model, you can get a little bit more. If you get other trims or wheels, you can get a little bit more out of it. This is the 19-inch wheel with the aero cover, which I think you can take off. I'm not sure how it really looks underneath, but I don't love the wheel design, but it goes with the funkiness of the whole thing. So more on that again in a second. Now, people also are concerned about DC fast charging speeds, which, as my dear friend and colleague Kevin pointed out recently on Inside EVs, you don't need to be worried about day to day, because if you are owning an EV, you should really be plugging it in at home, and you can also use plenty of level 2 chargers while you're out and about. I was actually over here a couple days ago and used a level 2 charge point charger while I was out watching a new musical at a community theater. Perfect use of those sort of chargers. So you don't necessarily need DC fast charging all the time, but when you're road tripping, it does matter. And in that case, this is good for 130 kilowatts of maximum DC fast charge speed. So those are kind of the highlights here. And other than that, I mentioned this was funky, and I had a lot of feelings about this car when it first came out, because I think on the outside it looks a little bit like an egg, which a lot of new crossovers do. I think the wheels are a little odd, which they are, but the interior in particular is just strange to me. And until I got in and kind of played with it, I didn't really appreciate the whole notion of what this thing is, and that is because getting up close and personal with it, feeling the different materials, seeing the colors, all the tactility, adds a little bit of something to this, and I really feel like this is sort of a modern interpretation of the funky and fun Japanese cars we saw in the late 90s and early 2000s. We saw those then because the dollar to yen ratio was very favorable for Japan to make special edition low production models, add some tech forward features, add some interesting touches, and bring those things over to the US. So before things became a little more homologated, if you will, standardized across the board, across manufacturer, point of origin sort of thing, the Japanese did a lot of fun stuff, a lot of innovative stuff. And this car has a lot of that going on, especially inside. So let me show you around. But first things first, this has a very blue interior to match the blue paint. I really, really love it. It's not the only color option that you have on the interior here. They've got a black and they've got kind of a light stone gray. They do also have some fun paint colors. This navy blue is plenty nice, but they've got kind of a color shifty green purple that I just love, and I think that's really cool they're offering that on this car. But this interior is really fun. It's got these blue leather seats with kind of a variety of stitching patterns, which are really nice to look at, and they're fairly comfortable. We'll talk about that more in a second. You've got a 2-spoke steering wheel, which again fairly nice to use, plenty of easy controls there. And then if you look at the dashboard, this has kind of a synthetic suede material going on here, and then you've got wood trim. So lots going on in this kind of copper strip that goes all the way across the dash by the air vents. So let me hop in, because it is indeed kind of warm out here in the DC area. But this is just an interesting, nice place to spend some time. So the faux suede continues all the way across the dash, all the way over. You've got this bronze strip, again, all the way over. And then with the wood, they've done something interesting here where they've added the climate control as real buttons that are within the wood. So you can actually touch them, and they're kind of haptic-y, and it works just fine. You do have to push a little hard, which I don't like, but it's kind of neat that they've just integrated this in here as kind of a very style-forward sort of thing. And that carries out through to the center console, which is, again, part of the weird, fun funkiness of this whole car. So you've got your shifter here, which is kind of a typical unit. They're using this in some other Nissan products. It's just one of those mono-stable where you put your foot on the brake, push the side button in, and forward goes in reverse, pull it back for drive, or B, which is the extra regen, one pedal sort of mode, push button for park. But you've got more buttons here in the wood, and this is where things get kind of funky. So before we talk about these, there's also some buttons here on the side. These let the console move by power back and forth, which I kind of questioned the value of, but I think based on where you've got your seat position, that is kind of nice because it means you can put the armrest exactly where you want it. So that is kind of a neat touch. Now looking back down at the rest of these, you've got some more buttons here, and this is for your parking assistance. E-step is for the quasi one pedal driving. Drive mode is drive mode. Close and open is not what you might think. I first thought this was for the sunroof shade, which it's not. That's on the ceiling where you might actually more expect it, but you've got a regular glove box right here, but then you've also got a power opening glove box here in the center. So if we push open, look at that. You can put things in it, and there's a little cover if you want to like have a sandwich, or I don't know, set out a little cheese spread, have a little charcuterie moment here. So really cool. I think it's kind of a clever touch. At first I thought this was gimmicky, but I actually like it because it's easy to reach, it's very secure. You know, even if someone broke into the car, they're probably not going to see this, they're not going to be able to open it, versus the regular glove box they might be able to. So only thing I don't love is you have to push and hold, because you can totally have this just like go wherever you want, and that's kind of odd. And again, you have to push these buttons a little harder than I would prefer, but that is kind of a neat touch. And then opening this armrest, you've got a wireless charger, which is great to heat up your phone on a hot day, and then another little just rubber mat for some storage stuff. If we look further down, move the console by power out of the way. How nifty. We've got two USB ports down here, one USB-C right here and one USB-A, and you can also kind of tuck the cord. You can wind it up down here. They've got a little, I'm making a mess out of this, but you can do, look at that, now I'm figuring it out. So you can do this as a way to kind of organize your charging cord if you want to use that, although the car does have wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Now looking back up here at the infotainment, you'll see this is the Nissan screen right here. This is the home screen, and you can swipe through with other things you might want to have as far as preferred apps, if you will. It's kind of interesting. I've mentioned this with other new Nissans, but whatever you touch on here makes the same default noise as opening a new window on Windows XP. And that's just because this is a default sound, probably through some Android or Google-based system where they got the sound files. Anyway, there's one screen here, and you'll notice you do have Apple CarPlay right here. No big deal. This is CarPlay. It is, you know, what it is. You've also got this climate button here. This is a little funky in a not fun way for adjusting the seat controls. So you've got your typical climate controls right here for basic temperature, defrost, and you know, usually just leave this set to auto. But if you want to control the rear climate, you're going to go here. That's just for the heated seats. You've got heated back seats and then heated and ventilated front seats. And to do this, you have to hit the climate button and then touch the seat, and then touch if you want hot or cold, or you can set it to auto. I just want it on full cold all the time because it's hot here. But this is a lot of steps to use while you're driving, so do not like. But Other than that, this is all fairly easy to use. There's also a couple little, they're not buttons, but hard touch surfaces between the two screens, because you've got one screen here for infotainment, one screen here for gauges. So you've got one that sets your day, night, if you don't want it in automatic mode, and then you can also hit this and go straight to the cameras. I will say the camera quality here, the overhead top-down view is pretty good. This, you can't really tell right now, but this, especially at night, is tragic for a car sold brand new for $50-something thousand in 2024. It is really not acceptable. It's middling webcam quality at best. So that's another little point of improvement. Now moving over here, the gauge cluster screen, this can be used in some nice ways. They've got, you know, basic speedometer and then your kind of power output versus regen gauge over here. You can use the steering wheel to go over, especially to your navigation, and have just a little map going on. It'll show you turn by turn if you've got that set up, but pretty basic. You've got a couple different views here. I just like this, it's fairly typical. And then moving further down, you've got a couple more hard controls here. Just some basic stuff, you know, tailgate, charge time, on off, automatic brake hold, that sort of thing. 2-position memory for the driver's seat and the passenger seat on this car. And then typical controls for door locks, mirrors, and 4 full window switches. I don't know why we have to comment on this, but in the industry we now do. That is impressive. One other button of note on here is this button right here, this nice little blue guy here. So this, we'll talk about more on the move. This is for Pro Pilot Assist. This is Nissan's semi-hands-free driving software, and it is akin sort of to Super Cruise and Blue Cruise in that you've got a little eyeball thing right here making sure that you are looking straight ahead. And there are limited roads, they are pre-mapped, high-definition mapping, that sort of thing, but there are roads, highways, where you can drive and hit the button and be hands-free, feet-free for however long you want to be. Now otherwise, the interior is fairly normal. You've got a now more standard rear view camera instead of rear view mirror. You can hit this and turn it off if you don't like it, which I kind of do at night. And then standard controls for home link and your panoramic sunroof and all that. Nice and airy in here with the big pano roof. You can see the front half of it-ish opens up, and then this is all fixed back here. And then again, more blue in the back seat. This is really fantastic stuff. Nice flat floor, plenty of legroom, and like I said, heated seats on this model. So with all that, that's the funky, fun interior. I do think it adds something. It's hard to add character to an EV, and in this case, Nissan is not claiming this is a performance car. This is just a car that is electric. This is, you know, the equivalent of like a electric Murano of sorts. So it's not meant to be sporty. It just kind of is what it is. But let's get on the road and talk about how it drives, because I do think it drives pretty well. So I went ahead and put the car in the B mode for the transmission, which just adds a little bit of extra regen braking, engine braking, if you will. This is not going to be the strongest one-pedal driving experience, despite having this E-step mode and the B mode. It's not as strong as some other cars I've driven where they will easily bring you to a full stop. It is, oh hello, E36 meet. This is fun. A woman in a wedding dress? Fascinating. 2 E36 M3s and a Z3. That's cool. Anyway, other cars I've driven will bring you to a full stop with one-pedal driving. This one will not do that. That's okay. We'll talk more about braking here in just a second, but we will go ahead and get on the highway. I'm going to put the drive mode in sport, but frankly, all it does is amp the throttle response up just a touch. It does not make the car any faster, and it doesn't change anything else. The dampers are not adaptive. The steering might weight up a tiny little bit more, but it's really nothing too crazy. Now, I'll go ahead and get lined up straight here from about 30 and floor it. And there's 65. It's plenty fast. This does not need to be any faster. It is, it's especially quick from 0. If you're already rolling, it's going to feel a touch slower, of course, but more torque than horsepower, you kind of feel that. It builds power nice and progressively. Really not a concern or complaint there with how the power is delivered, and there's plenty of it. Now at highway speeds and around town at slower speeds, the ride quality in here is very good, I think, for what it is. This is on the 19-inch wheels, which means you get a little bit more of a sidewall on the tire versus the 20s that are optional. I would go with the 19s. I think the 19s are the way to get the best range out of this particular trim. They also have an 18, I believe, that could give you better range in some cases, but either way, the 19 is one of the more optimized wheel choices that you have. Let me go ahead and put this back to standard because I don't really need sport. Sport doesn't do anything. Most people are never going to drive this thing in sport, but it rides nice. I think it's well damped. It's going to be on the softer side. Like I said, they're not intending for this to be a sports car, so it feels pretty good. It soaks up bumps well. The body movement is generally well controlled. If you throw it over something that's off camber with a big bump, it will leap a little bit and kind of feel a little unsettled, but that's what a lot of cars do when they're softer, and frankly, it's really just so fine. Now, coming up to a stoplight, I'm lifting, I'm doing my one pedal, I'm regen braking as best I can, and this is where I don't like this car's brakes. This is the single worst part of the driving experience of the Nissan Ariya. So the issue here is the same as with the Mercedes-Benz EQ electric cars. They have decided, and Nissan has adopted this for some insane reason, that as you are one pedal driving and you lift throttle, so you want to slow down, as the car starts regen braking, the brake pedal will physically move away from your foot based on how strongly the car is slowing on its own. Now, in theory, that sounds great, right? Because, oh, we're gonna meet you where you are. Your foot, when it needs to add more brake, can then add in more pedal, and it's all fine and good. The challenge here, as we come up to another red light, I'm gonna lift again, the brake pedal is constantly moving. That makes it a pain in city traffic, it makes it a pain on back roads, it makes it a pain if you're slowing down from higher speeds, and as I was just going through a turn there, I was lifting off a little bit to slow down for the turn, and then I'm ready to reapply throttle to accelerate in a straight line again. The brake pedal comes back up and kind of kicks my foot off the throttle. So they've got this whole wiggly, moving on its own brake pedal thing, and I don't understand the point. I get the concept, but in reality, it doesn't work because you need a car to be predictable to the inputs you give it. Cars respond to inputs you give. Cars don't just do things on their own. So, well, I guess now with all this driver assistance tech, sometimes they do. But in most cases, cars just respond to your inputs. How can you give a proper input if you're expecting consistency and predictability and it's not there? That's my entire problem with this. Nissan needs to get with it and do something else with these because it's really, really just unfun. Now, as we get back on the interstate here, we can talk about this Pro Pilot Assist. So hit that button, hit set, and there we go. So you've got a couple different things going on here. In this case, it's saying steering assist limited. The maps around here, there's construction going on and it doesn't know quite what it wants to do, so it's making me steer. But you've got ambient lighting that goes from the doors all the way across the dash and back to the passenger door, and that is going to be green when the car is wanting you to steer, and it shows an icon in the cluster and the heads-up display of hands on the steering wheel. When it's all ready to let you do your own thing, it will then go blue and it will say you can take the hands off the wheel, and that is pretty decent. It is not as good as Super Cruise, it is not as good as Blue Cruise, but it is really, really, really close. So that has been fun to play with, although their mapping does not seem to be as great around the DC area as some of these other systems I have tried. And again, there's no self-driving cars on the road today, so this is a level 2 system. You still have to pay attention to the road, keep your eyes forward, and be ready to take over as needed. Now, other drivability bits beyond acceleration, braking, suspension, steering. The steering, the car goes where you point it. It doesn't have a ton of feel necessarily. That's not really the point of a car like this. The steering weights up nicely enough as you throw it into a turn. It's going to lean a little toward understeer as you push, but no one's pushing one of these things. So it feels fine. There's more weight based on the drive mode, but that's really all you get. So, you know, beyond that, otherwise, this whole thing is, I think, a pretty decent package. Ugh, the brakes though. The brakes. I just don't like them. Other than that, it's a pretty nice package. The interior is good, it's funky, it's fun, the sound system is pretty decent, it's pretty quiet in here, it's well equipped, it's priced fairly enough. This one's fully loaded, it's mid-50s, you can get them starting in the 40s. So, you know, it's generally, I think, pretty good. I will warn you though, if you are tall, I'm having a really hard time getting comfortable in this seat. The seats are good looking, the seats themselves are nice, they don't adjust where I want them to be. At 6'1", I'm having a bit of a tough time just with my head being very close to the roof. I don't like this. I'd prefer to be lower in the car a little bit. And then I also feel like the armrest down is a little too far down here for my elbow. I want it to be up. So really, if the whole seat went down by about an inch or so, this would all be a little more comfortable. The steering wheel does tilt and telescope, which is great. The seat otherwise has a pretty good amount of adjustability. I don't even want to say all tall people won't fit in this car, because that's false. Every physical body is going to be a little bit different. Your torso versus legs will be a little bit different. So it really, you need to go have a test sit, which I always make the point of saying. But for me, the way I'm built, I don't fit in Miatas. I don't fit in this that well. There's other stuff I fit in perfectly that you probably won't fit in very well yourself. So just something to think about. But in general, this is growing on me more than I thought it would. I was kind of expecting to not love it. I thought I would only like, and I wouldn't say love, because there's nothing about this car that appeals to an enthusiast. It's just a pretty nice electric crossover. But I think if that's all you want, this is a generally nice package. That is it for this review of the 2024 Nissan Ariya. Thank you so much for coming along. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe. We're right here on YouTube. Give us a follow everywhere else, Facebook, Instagram, I don't know, some other socials maybe. And head over to outmotorsports.com if you'd like to join a community of LGBT automotive enthusiasts and motorsports competitors. We've got a bunch of events going on, both on the street and on the racetrack throughout the rest of this year and into next. And we would love to have you for any and all of that. So check us out over there. And until next time, stay safe, be well. See you soon.